where man is believing in a very different, if you want to call it, not a gospel, but a news that's not good news. The gospel means good. Good news is that mankind is the author of his own demise or co-creation with the Creator when we're inspired. And the only way to do good is to hear and do the will of the Creator. And that means whether it's exploring deep space or advancing and destroying disease or creating a planet where we, despite having galactic and solar events like a coronal mass ejection or a kill shot from the sun or a near-Earth object, that mankind becomes literally the master of this planet. We go and advance from a zero-order culture to, as Michio Kaku says, a order one culture where we control the fusion power of the star, our sun, Sol, to an order two culture where we control the black hole power of torsion fields, which is the power of the galaxy, to the power of the cosmos, which is the curved time-space upon itself that causes the universe to be a finite curved time-space that encloses 460 quadrillion galaxies. And that is literally the elemental particle of yet a larger universe. And when we start to understand the nature of what we are as beings, that we're in fact the I and the we are connected. When we start to understand the idea of where we call hyperdimensionality occurs in non-locality in quantum physics. The quantum physics, in fact, we're going to have on the program some of the leaders like Dr. Doran on the Quantum University. And we'll talk about some of these things in the program more. But people need to grasp, I'm trying to teach things that have never been taught before. And we have some major things happening to the planet. And it says in Luke 21, men's hearts will fail for fear of what is coming upon the earth. Now, of course, the latest edition of National Geographic talks about the sun in 2013 reaching its maximum in terms of solar mass ejection and danger. The 1989 solar storm that hit northern Quebec knocked out power for 6 million people. The Harrington event on September 1st, 1859 was large enough that if it occurred today, our civilization would crash and end. It would be over. And the fact is, we are heading toward a Carrington event nexus next year. We're heading also through the middle of the galactic plane, which occurs every 62 million years. We're heading toward the convergence of an object that's a class 3 red dwarf star that will pass through the orbit of Mars and Jupiter, coming up in the next 7 to 10 years. That will increase the chances of a kill shot from the sun. We are moving to a time where we have convergence of many different cycles. The Maunder minimum cycle, 360 years, which is twice the alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, that it causes mini ice ages, which cause the collapse of every civilization in the known recorded history, at least back 10,000 years. We have the Milankovitch cycles, 105,000 years, and we have what's called the extinction level cycle that literally occurred at the same time as the impact of the asteroid that released methane hydrates and caused the drop of oxygen and partial pressure on the Earth from 40% to 30 to 40% oxygen to literally as low as 5%, which is why only small animals and organisms survived under a certain number of kilograms size. So the descendants of the dinosaurs are the birds, believe it or not. The descendants of the tiny voles and mice were the new rising species that occurred, not by evolution, but by extinction and by what are called progressive recreation. So there's no intermediate species. And we need to understand that we're moving to a time where as mankind is going to survive as a species, we need to change our attitude towards each other, toward the Creator. We need to both conceive the I, or us personally, and the we, not just us in terms of a species, but we have to stop deciding to fight each other, to destroy each other, or to tolerate evil in any form, including globalist, evil, self-directed, domineering control freaks that want to set up false environmental ideas, false dialectics using carbon credits, and false bifurcation of society. So technologies we've already developed, like deep space, radiation-proof robots that could help Fukushima, the use of spider silk Kevlar tents to cover the area, the use of technologies to neutralize radiation isotopes, because we've already decided and found that the coronal mass ejections are preceded by a torsion field that actually alters the rate of degradation of radioisotopes. We are not using all of our advanced science we already know, and we're not reaching out with our imagination, which is the most powerful and creative thing that God's given us. It says in the Bible that nothing will be withheld with them now that they are in one language and all in one place. Well, with the internet, with international communications, in a sense, the electronic Tower of Babel is rebuilt, but hopefully, if we're repentant, it will be for God and not for destruction, because we're in the knife's edge of galactic, solar, and cosmic cycles. And the big question the Creator God and the cosmos is asking, will man advance? Will be this the birthday of a new mankind or the death of our world?
Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is June 1st, 2012. It is Friday evening, and we are listening to the NUTRIMEDICAL Report, Hour 3, with Dr. Bill Deagle, and next will be the Earth Changes, and this is wonderful. And here we go. While the commercials are on, I'm going to read you the news in between. Okay, the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. Mexico's Popocatépetl volcano unleashes Tower of Ash. Also, Electric Earth. Scientists dismayed by pulse emitted from Earth during May 17th CME. I can't, I'm looking at the whole article. I'm going to move on from that. What kind of, I guess it went, Pamela, a European spacecraft dedicated to watching rays from space, the most recent event, will allow the study of the evolution of the flare from low to high energies without interruption. Growing arms race. Pakistan successfully tests nuclear capability cruise missile. Global markets go into meltdown. Unemployment surges to record highs across Eurozone. And also, I did see on the news, the regular news, that they said unemployment went down. It went down because they discontinued the unemployment, myself included, on the federal extensions. So it makes it look like it's like a forced figure stating that unemployment is down, but it's not due to increased jobs, because the monies are not being distributed anymore out of unemployment. Yes, so I do have a PayPal account attached to when it says learn more about Feel Free on my channel, Feel Free Music. Yep, Feel Free Music, go into that. You'll find my tip jar if you'd like to donate. Before I go into some kind of panic that there's no income coming in. Alright. Call of the Wild. Second incident of human cannibalism reported in the U.S. in a week. And it shows the zombies that ate the world. Earth. In yet another horrifying incident of human flesh eating this week, a student in Maryland allegedly admitted to devouring his roommate's brain and heart. Oh! Alexander Kinua, a 21-year-old Morgan State University student, admitted to murdering his roommate, Kujo Bonsafu Agikudi, who was reported missing last Friday, cops told Baltimore Sun. And let's see what else. Tuesday night, when Kudo's brother reportedly found human remains, a head and 2 hands, in a metal tin in the basement, the brother and father left the room for a short time. When they came back, the body parts had been removed and Kunin was washing out the tin. The paper reported. Oh. The man allegedly confessed a shocking revelation. Not only had he killed Kude by cutting him up with a knife and then dismembering him, he ingested parts of the victim's brain and all of his heart. He then allegedly dropped most of the remains in a dumpster behind a church in Jopatown. Oh my goodness. And he's charged with first-degree murder on Wednesday. The incident was on May 20th. Huh. That is terrible. Is he back? Here we go, he's back.
Facilities would be much more plainly seen by regular telescopes, although our radio telescopes, including especially infrared telescopes like SOHO and a high-altitude telescope we launched about 2 years ago, the German-made telescope in our Boeing 747, could see this object approaching from the southern ecliptic.
Right,
It's a class 3.
Imaging, you're right. Imaging in the infrared light spectrum has been the way to go for quite a while.
Yeah, and X-ray telescopes. The other thing is what's called a neutrinoscope, and that's underneath the ice sheet there. And the neutrinoscope in Antarctica is a very, very interesting telescope. It's called a neutrino telescope. They have a neutrino lab in Sudbury, Ontario, that's looking at specific things about neutrinos, looking at what's called the harmonic frequencies of the sun and of deep objects in space. And I'm certain that they are developing data streams that are actually showing anomalies that indicate there's an object approaching. What it's going to do is cause what's called curvation of time-space, which can affect the gravitational effects in the plasma inside the sun, which will cause increased chances of a kill shot, solar coronal mass ejection. Also, it affects the plasma inside the star, the planets like our planet, and gas giants like Jupiter, which can increase the movement of tectonic plates and the risk of a superquake and or volcanic eruptions. So all these things are all coming together. This scientist, of course, this is a class 3 red dwarf star, and I want to say that this knowledge is very ancient. Moses was actually schooled, and he was the most educated man in his time. He was supposed to become Pharaoh because most people don't realize his name wasn't Moses. People say, well, that's his name, isn't it? No, that's why you hear the word Tutmoses. Tutmoses means the son of Tut, okay? The reason why they said Moses is because he was cut off from being in the pharaonic line because he killed an Egyptian to save a Hebrew slave. So the only thing they left him was Moses.
Amazing.
Isn't that interesting? He's in teleology. So the name Moses means drawn out of or son of. It means like Johnson, it would be like calling your name son. No more John, but all you got left is son. Okay? Now Moses was the most brilliant man. He wrote literally by the scribe of God, which is the Torah, which is part of the Bible code. The first 5 books of the Bible came from Moses. He was trained in medicine. He was the most amazing tactician that taught Joshua, which is why the Joshua Wars were the most effective wars of ancient Israel. He was an astronomer. That's why he was in the land of Midian, which is down near Mecca and Medina. He was actually watching the star signs and was told by the ancients, because they knew that this what's called the Satan star Hercules, or what's called the Passover star, was going to come back in. And if you look at every single event through the eyes of a scientist, every single thing that happened in the ancient plagues, including the telluric currents that drove the insects and the snakes and the frogs and the release the Egyptian locusts, every single event, including the explosion at Terra that destroyed the kingdom in the Eastern Mediterranean of the ancient Minoans. Every single thing that occurred, including the falling of the the giant hailstones, etc., were all environmental disasters precipitated by the passage of the Class 3 dwarf star I call the Passover star. That's what I was told to say it is. Not Planet X, but the Passover star. And that's coming. It's coming sometime after 2012. I can't tell you when, but it's coming, and they know it's coming. And it won't come within 55 million miles of Earth, but it will cause the sun to have some major, major explosions. That's why it still holds up there.
The Passover star and the 10th planet are synonyms?
They're the exact same thing. In fact, there's a dozen different names for it. The ancient Egyptians call it the winged destroyer. The ancient symbol that you see with the two wings on either side, which are the plasma wings you can see near the sun as it comes by. The ancient Iranians and that have their ancient religions, including Zoroastrians, called it something else. But they all had the same names, the same going back to the ancient Atlanteans, and the people in the area of Mu all had names because this star returns every 3,600, roughly to 12 to 15 years. And when it returns, it is a continent former. It is a planet that, depending on other cycles, can cause the disjunction of the lithosphere and the mantle, which can cause a continent to literally move on the face of the Earth like boiling the skin of a tomato and making the continents move at the pace of an ambling old man over a period of months.
That would be pretty scary.
Yeah, so we're talking about over a period, if you had someone walking, and I'm talking about ambling at 1.6 miles an hour, continuously for 2 months, the continents would move, as it says in the Bible. Every island shall be taken out of its place, and every continent and every mountain shall be moved. That means the Bible is predicting scientifically a lithosphere mantle disjunction and a movement of every continent on Earth. Now, what I've been shown supernaturally is that when this process is finished, and I can't tell you when it'll happen, the equator will pass through Cuba.
Well, that would make all of us a lot farther south, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. In fact, even if there's an ice age, the ice age will be in Siberia, northern Russia, and China.
Well, if I had to choose, I would pick warmer rather than colder, although it's not as healthy.
Yeah, well, cold will kill you much quicker. In fact, it's been calculated, Robert Felix has calculated out, many other experts, that an ice age, if it occurred now, even either a Maunder ice age or 10,005-year Milankovitch age, it occurs, we call the precession of the equinoxes, that it will kill more people than a nuclear war by a major order of magnitude.
Oh, I would think it would. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's in other words, the Bible is true. The more you study it, the more you use our intellect, prayer, and actually go scriptures, it says that God says in the book of Daniel, close up and seal these words to the time of the end. We're there. We're all believers. Ann's a scientist, a believer. You're a special forces, a preparedness expert. You're a scientist, an expert on earth changes. You see this. I see this. God's raising up people to see that this is not just a delusion of one or two individuals. This is a collective, and even scientists, international agencies, NASA's hiding it from the public because they think they don't want to panic.
We're going to see, Dr. Deagle, a dramatic increase in the disinformation regarding the 10th planet as these reports start creeping in from the southern hemisphere.
They won't be able to stop it because at some point it'll become, it's my prediction that when backyard telescopes can see it, especially at sundown, okay, when backyard telescopes can see it, when people that are further north, like South Africa, Australia, New Zealand can see it, and that will happen probably in the next year or so. We're going to then panic will set in. It says in the book of the book of Luke, that men's hearts will fail for fear of what is coming upon the earth. Well, we need to rest in God. And Psalm 91:1, despite all these things, don't be filled with fear. Fear comes from the dark side. Our God is God. And he's sending these things to us like a love letter saying, just like I read in the book of Isaiah, I will restore your years in Isaiah 65, verse 20 to 22. He's going to restore those years. He's going to rebuild the world. He'll make a new earth. The earth will be new. It'll be renewed. It won't be the same earth. There'll be a realignment of the continents. There'll be a realignment of the growth zones. The deserts will bloom. Other areas will be plunged into the darkness of an ice age. That's the world we're going to be moving into. The people that listen will survive. Those are in coastal areas where we know they're going to be devastated because there will be, in some areas, giant tsunamis. Other areas will be plunged under the ocean, just like ancient Atlantis, and other areas will arise. Those things are going to happen. Whether people want to believe it or not, the governments are fully aware of this, and they're hiding it from the public.
They are, and they're making diligent and very expensive preparations to deal with it, and they have been doing so since 1979.
Yeah, and you're one of the top experts on this, John and Ann. When we come back, we'll continue with our full hour, and hopefully we'll have some more information. But I want to talk about a timeline of what I expect, at least on the timeline we're on now, without repentance, this is where we're going. And when I get feedback from Ann, John, and our other panel experts, when we return. Hour 3 coming up. If you hear it on the NutriMedical Report, listen also to John's show on Republic Radio, 7 to 9 a.m., thelibertyman.com, and Ann Morrison, her website is homeland-defense4u.com, homeland-defense4u.com. Again, John's website, thelibertyman.com. Listen daily. He's got some amazing information over at Republic Radio, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Well, we're back. Let me make sure you can see me. My goodness. Here comes some more news. We can maybe call it the bad news. I think some of this was in local papers, might have been on television, you might have heard of it already. Okay, to continue on the Extinction Protocol 2012. Could this be an alarming new trend? The human race now turning inward on itself, psychologically like a cancer. I'm coining it. I coined it before. This is mad human disease. It's probably from ingesting things that we shouldn't have. When they put the flavorings in Pepsi. I think there's other companies on that list. You might want to go back into one of my older videos. But the flavorings with the human parts in it, I don't care if they're fetus or whatever. Aborted fetuses, that's what's happening when you go to, I guess, the clinics. They do that. They take it, ship it over to a food company like PepsiCo, and you're ingesting it. And what's happening, I think, it's giving you mad human disease, and you're turning on each other, and it's like you turn into a zombie. Mad human disease. Yes, Diana coined it. Diana Marks. Yes, MHAS, gerontology. Mad human disease. From unknowingly being cannibals. Oh. Detox yourself somehow. You're going to have to zeolite and whatever you can do. Maybe fast. We want to detox this stuff. Hopefully we can detox somehow. New bad news. Pestilence Watch is Chauragas, the new HIV/AIDS of the Americas. Chauragas, it's also known as the kissing bug disease because this thing kind of looks like a cross between a mosquito and a tick. I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like if you can see it. I'm going to show the screen. Hopefully you're picking it up. Okay. There it is. I don't know if the camera's getting it because I can't split my screen. But there it is. Alrighty? This is terrible. Okay, here we go. Alright. So, they're saying it's like AIDS because there's no cure. It looks like kind of like a cross between, to me, like a tick and a mosquito, but darker. And what it does is when it bites you, and it's starting to ingest your blood, it also puts like a parasite next to the wound. And if you scratch it over on your face somewhere, like your lips, it likes to go around the lips. So if you scratch it, because I guess it comes out at night like a vampire, just like mosquitoes do. So if you scratch it, you're moving the parasite, some type of worm, into your wound, and then it goes systemic. And another person told me that it goes into your heart muscles and multiplies and explodes your heart. My goodness. Not good, not good at all. So, and they're saying that it's mainly in like the tropical areas of South America, and let me pull the camera up a little bit. South America, and where else is it? But there's some people here that have it. But more than 300,000 live in the United States with it. And right now there's no cure. But anti-parasitic protocols. That's the best thing I can suggest. It sounds like a form of heartworm. Alrighty? Let's treat it as such. And if there's no known cure, let's go. That means there's no pharmaceutical known cure. Let's go holistic, since they don't have a cure. And let's do, let's check it. I would check out Dr. Deagle's protocols for parasites, boost your immune system, and lots of garlic also. I know garlic is very bad for parasites. You know, it'll kill them. And also, there's licorice root. That was another one I was told years ago when I was working. But you should check out Dr. Deagle's protocols. I'm sure he's going to come up with something real soon. He probably has something up there already. Let's see if he's back.
This abomination to say you're going
Here he
to
is. He's back.
Abortion, because it abominates the whole issue of the fact that all babies, even if they have a birth defect, even if they're going to die 6 weeks later because they have a trisomy 18, like little Bella that nearly died here recently, and Santorum had to abort his election trial. The fact is that every child has a right to live. Every senior has a right to live. And when we have 20,000 plus children die after Fukushima Daiichi, as far away as Pennsylvania, in a neonatal intensive care unit, proven by mortality and morbidity reports, this isn't Dr. Deagle's conspiracy theory. Your mouth will dry up and you'll have no more spittle to spit on me or John Moran Morrison soon, because when you see the star approaching, the star of the apocalypse, the star of the Passover, the star called Herculebus, or the star called the Destroyer, your mouth will dry up and your eyes will become pinpoints and you'll cry out and say, what shall we do? Well, you should repent now, because what we're facing is the end of the ages, you know it. And our problem isn't science. We aren't going to have some fancy science thing. And if we do, it's only because God inspires us how to do it, to protect us. If he has to literally hold his hand up to protect us, he will, but only to a repentant planet. Only to a repentant planet, because right now, what I see is people full of a lot of spittle, want to spit on John and me and Ann and anybody else who literally raises issues, like Alex Jones, who recently talked, has been years talking about this. Now they have they want to put up 200,000 drones, I think it is eventually. Some of them be weaponized over American soil. When will people get it? When will they get it? When we have people like Mike Velarde that talk about the fact that the Obamacare passed 2 years ago by our Congress, the mark of the beast is actually in it. We're going to be injected with an implantable, trackable chip. This is not theory. This is no longer out of the box. This is real. If this isn't organic, you can't smell the sulfur of the dragon, of the Satan himself on your neck, you're a moron. And you're going to soon die, and it's going to hurt and leave a mark first. So I want to open up the whole issue. The timeline I see is we're going to have a disputed election. Obama's going to get back in if we don't replace Mitt Romney by a real Christian leader like Tom Hoefling. If we don't repent as a Christian movement, the Christian right will be destroyed or completely scattered, like the ancient scattering when they called forth the 10,000 that offered to fight with Gideon and his army. He only wanted those who lapped up water like the dog, the 300. He didn't want the fools to say, yeah, I want to fight. No, you don't want to fight. You want to compromise because you want to get elected. You want to compromise because you don't want to offend your relatives, your boss, get fired, lose your medical license, lose anything else because you don't want to speak out. Well, guess what? The time to speak out is now, or you'll soon be silenced for good in the lake of fire. And then next year, I expect, because Obama has literally promised the Israelis, the maniacs there that wanted to couldn't care less if all the Jews die, they'll put off the Israeli war, and just when it looks so much like Armageddon's going to happen, they'll pull back where they formed a new world order and a new G20 world currency, which is part of the mark of the beast system, and they'll have a peace treaty. None other than Mr. Obama will declare, with the Sanhedrin's approval, by the way, that was passed on through George Bush, the scroll of Bush. He's the only man on earth, the U.S. president, that can literally allow the rebuilding of the Temple Mount Temple of the ancient Jews and allow the sanctification on Sukkot to start the last 7 years of human history with the time of Jacob's trouble. And when God is saying, I shall put back the host of Judah and the host of Joseph or Ephraim, and I shall have mankind repent, and if the people of earth do not repent, they shall die. And they shall die horrifying deaths. And what I've seen when I was 8.5 and had my near-death experience, I can tell you, you don't want to know what I know. You don't. People say, I want to know everything you know, Deagle. You can't handle it. You couldn't handle it. God has put me through things that you don't want to know. And the grieving I had after the day after Mitt Romney got the nomination, it makes me ill to know what's coming and have people still full of spittle. Out there, you need to know that when you're hearing the words from John Moore in his program and Ann Morrison, you need to know this is it. This is not a rehearsal. This is real. This is the big show. Repent. As it says in Joel, for the day of the Lord is near. Back in a moment.
Wow, there's a lot of commercials today. Okay, let's see if we're back. This is going pretty fast. Alrighty then. Let's see if we're back. Yes, we're back. Extinction Protocol. Let's get through it. There's a lot today. Last call at the Oasis. The world is running out of drinkable water. And if you don't believe me, just go to the movies. Alright. Let's see what else is going on. .5 magnitude earthquake strikes big island of Hawaii. And that's it for right now with the Extinction Protocol. Moving on. Okay, moving on. The Watchers. Okay, heads up. Skywatcher's Guide, the 2012 Transit of Venus. Everything you need to know about it. And that is due around June 5th, is what I read. And depending upon where you are, it might be June 6th. And where the international timeline is. So heads up on that. We have a few more days to prepare. But it's June. Let's see. June 5th. The Western Hemisphere. And on June 6th in the Eastern Hemisphere. So that's how it's split in the Western and the Eastern Hemisphere. Alrighty. Let's see, and what they did with that, when Venus went across, it's going to totally align with, just like a lunar eclipse, but it's going to be Venus in there. We're going to be in a straight line, and that's how they figured out hundreds of years ago how big the solar system was, and checking on the solar system by mathematics. And it won't happen again in our lifetime. Tropical storm Mawar Ambo intensifies as it continues to move northwestward across parts of the Philippines. Harsh climate change blamed for heavy flash floods in Uganda. Unusual strong shallow magnitude 5.6 earthquake hit Antarctica region. Strong earthquakes continue globally. Supervolcano drilling. The Campi Flegrei deep drilling project approved. Oh, they just want to ignite everything. China successfully launched remote sensing satellite Yaogan 15. Alrighty then, that's it with the watchers. Let's take that off. That way we can move faster. Not yet. He's not back yet. I was waiting to see if he's going to talk about the zombies. Let's see. Japan. E&E News.
Purifying.
New photos show what remains number 4 reactor building, eastern wall. Doesn't look like anything. It's all smashed. It's like all smashed and shredded. Report. We've started to see the black substance in Sonoma City. Please be careful. Very high radiation levels, and that's in Japan, of course. Here we go. He's coming back now.
Welcome back, and John, I want you to, and Ann, take over for a moment here. People need to know that's not acting. This is real. If they don't have a gut-wrenching feeling on the spirit, I call it spirit words that hit them hard today. If their mouth doesn't dry up so they have no more spittle, I don't know what else to do for them, because their time is really short. John, I want you to fill in. You were talking this morning on your program about Ambassador Murata, and ambassadors are not known to be flippant, so tell us all about it.
Ambassadors from all countries receive special training in how to obfuscate and how to minimize whatever it is they're dealing with. Ambassador Murata comes flat out and says that if or when reactor number 4 at Fukushima nuclear power plant goes up, it will be the end of civilization as we know it.
But it's not the only reactor. Most people don't know this. What's going on there is a Daini reactor, and reactors all over Japan are sitting on a fault line, earthquake central, and 75% of the nuclear reactors in America are within the strike zone of a major superquake, including 25 reactors, many of them are Mark I design, sitting literally near the New Madrid fault system. We've had pre-quake warning signs that it's going to happen. And yet, worldwide, on our 450 plus reactors, we're doing nothing. We're talking about decommissioning these in 2022 or 2030. Sorry, you're decades too damn late, because if you don't start moving the radioactive material off-site now, not just the reactors, they're turning them off, because the reactive material, if it hits the groundwater table, it's going to generate hydrogen and nuclear explosions, and you'll have dirty bombs going off all over the world. We already have the effect of World War III now. And it's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah, one of my confidential sources, Dr. Bill, he got information about the New Madrid seismic zone, and he's so concerned about, he won't even talk to me about it on the telephone. We have to meet in person. Hopefully that'll happen in the next week or so.
Right, and I know you have contacts, and the thing is that God has appointed all of us to be witnesses. People say, well, I'd like to attack Deagle. No, I'd like to take John Moore. You know, get over it, okay? Get over it. God is literally telling you to repent, that there is a God out there that cares for you. He's not going to zap you up with a rapture. That's not going to happen. He's going to help us through the fire like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And if you don't listen and prepare with even the simplest things of having 3 weeks of food and water, having seeds and self-protection, having yourself ready and being out of these big damn cities now, getting out of Chicago and these big cities now, because when disaster hits, it's too late. It's too late.
You touched on something we rarely talk about. Rapture theology is bogus, non-existent, feel-good theology that has no basis in the Bible whatsoever.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Actually, here's the problem with, to quote, the modern church. The modern church basically is a Laodicean church. And the item comes, when I'm called to speak, people would like to speak as Dr. Deagle. Well, Dr. Deagle is actually what I call my third or fourth title. My first title is the Witness of Ephraim. I come to speak as an apostle, prophet. Not because I want to, because not in my right mind would I apply for this job. But it was prophesied 2,000 years ago to my ancestor. It's been passed down to my great-uncle. I'm fulfilling that, and believe me, I tried to run from it for years. And what I have to say is the most horrifying news that anybody could give a civilization. The fact is, we're there. We're there, and we can be saved out of it. A lot of people are going to die. A lot of our civilization is going to collapse. a lot of the planet could be saved. Again, God said, unless I cut those days short, no flesh would survive. But, you know, without repentance, and I don't see any repentance. I don't see repentance in the Christian right when you have all these Christian leaders endorsing a Mormon that goes in the Temple Mormon says in front of some of the play acts of Satan, man must fall that he may know both good and evil, and believes that Jesus Christ and Satan are literally brothers. I mean, come on, people. You need to get a life out there.
I see individuals in little home churches and a church here and there that are repenting, but for the whole, it's not happening.
Right, and when I went and tried to talk even about pro-life issues, I would get 3/4 of the Catholic churches would say, yeah, this is great, come and speak. Actually, a quarter would allow me to speak if I would pay for the foods to set up all the chairs and the projector and so on. The Protestant churches, 95% would slam the phone so hard in my ear, I lost hearing.
It's bad for business.
Bad for business.
Right.
And the reason what I do is I warn them off because God told me, you give them these 12 questions that you're going to ask the deacons board, which must be there at your presentation, as well as the senior members of the church, including the women's group, the men's group, and the other groups that are involved there. And when I give them the 12 questions, they say, ooh, gee, I don't think we're going to have the ability to have you at our church.
Right, right.
You know why?
Churches are businesses. That's the bottom line. They are.
Well, I said, I come to speak with a spiritual flamethrower. I don't come here as Mr. Nice Guy. I come here to ask you questions, like a prosecuting, cross-examining attorney in the Supreme Court of the Most High God. And it's not going to be pleasant. It's like I'm going to peel back and I worked in a burn unit. I'm going to peel back what's called the eschar of the dead flesh, and I'm going to get down to real bright flesh, and I'm going to be able to seal it off so they can actually regrow tissue so you don't die of dehydration. Well, we have to do that spiritually. The church is like a dead corpse, or one soon dead, where body temperature is dropping, their dehydration occurring, and the pulse is fading of the church. And this latest endorsement, that's why I think the next day I grieved so bad that Texas, who should know better, endorsed a Mormon as a representative of the Christians and the Christian right.
Well, they may do that at the top levels, but you can't fool these Southern Christians. They know.
That's why we're going to have another term of Abominator.
Right.
And when you see the Abomination that shall desolate, standing in the holy place, doesn't that sound familiar? The Abomination?
Well, you know, Barak was the name of the horse that Muhammad rode to heaven.
Right. So, you know,
we have a president named after a horse.
Yeah, well, he's a horse's whatever. As they say, his long title is he's a bisexual, Sunni Muslim, Satanist, high-level Mason, globalist puppet run by Geppetto Soros and the global satanic regime that runs the planet through the bankers.
Well, you know, he's never publicly renounced Islam, because if he did, these imams would issue fatwas for his death.
But the fact is that he curtsied in a particular way. I've talked to experts on this. Before the Saudi king, which is exactly the only one that would know this as a high-level Sunni Muslim. And he's made a statement in Tahrir Square 3 years ago, and privately, both private and public, he's a Sunni Muslim. He was raised in Indonesia as a Sunni Muslim. The fact is, even his pastors come out and said, we've already known that he was a Sunni Muslim. He never denied his Islamic faith. He just came to the church to learn more about Christianity. He never committed to be a Christian, even though he said it publicly. Just like he never, he lies to us and said, well, I believe in the sanctity of marriage years ago when he wants to get elected. Now he said, well, I believe that I was actually all wrong all along. Listen, you belong to a men's bathhouse, Obama. We know you're bisexual. We know you're a drug addict. We know you're completely sold out. You're a human husk. And we need to pray for this man because his little tiny fragment of human soul that's left still could be prayed for. And you know the reason why it's so important to pray for Obama? Because his boot is on our neck because we refuse to pray for him. How many people at night, I want to ask this question, pray for Hillary Clinton with a 12 to 16 foot tall Draco reptilian monster? How many people pray for Obama that's a what I call avatared by the most monstrous demonic entities, transdimensional black energy, dark matter monstrosities in the universe? How many people pray for Obama every night, truly for his soul to be saved? How many?
Well, I don't know, but his soul does need to be saved, there's no doubt.
And the problem is, he's going to continue to plague us through another term unless we pray for him be relieved of his demons.
Dr. Bill, I need to bail out of here, but it's been a good show.
Yeah, amazing. I appreciate it, and we're going to be back in a minute with Ann Morrison continuing. We'll be joined hopefully by Chris Harris and Robert Felix. And if you don't feel the intensity today, you're soon going to know it in reality.
Hello?
Congratulations.
For what?
For losing all that weight.
Wow. This is really, really a long show. Alrighty then. My goodness. I guess this was hour 3. So you got a long show to watch or listen to, just like if it was a radio program, because that's what this is. On Genesis Communications. And I didn't know he was going to say all that. But it's heads up. Heads up. That was sure different. Well, at least hopefully in between the breaks, when it goes dark, you get up from the computer and you go and you do something. Alrighty, then instead of just sitting there staring at a blank screen, I'd rather do the blank screen so you actually go do something and get some exercise. Or, you know, get up and walk around instead of be glued to the computer screen, which is probably not good for your eyes. Alrighty then. But you can hear it. Just turn it way up. Alright. Moving on. This is really a long show. This is probably going to be about 2 hours. Okay. Going back to Japan, Fukushima. Okay. Japan nuclear expert. When I try to figure out the true magnitude of damage, I am overwhelmed. Almost all of Fukushima Prefecture would be abandoned if government regulations were applied. And there's a video to that. Even if Japanese government goes into bankruptcy, it still won't be enough to compensate all the damages that will be produced from Fukushima Daiichi. Remember, there's also Daini and other ones, and they just keep having earthquakes over there. A lot of other reactors. Former head of Japan's #1 newspaper worked with CIA to promote nuclear power. Whoops, okay then. And we'll put here, Minamisoma official discusses black smoke when reactor #3 exploded. And that was yesterday. Alrighty then, let's go up here. Let's see. Now, he's not back yet. Alright. So, that was hour 3. We're going into hour 4 of the show. Okay. Let's go into U.S. California nuclear professor. Radioactive tuna may raise cancer risk. It may raise cancer risk. Yeah. Also, nuclear expert. It is not advisable to eat bluefin tuna. Fukushima radiation deposited over 600,000 square miles of Pacific. Cesium crosses placental barrier of animals. U.S. government memo. Oh, he's coming back. We'll go back again in a minute. It's a lot of news here today.
And we're back for a dynamic next half hour with returning from earthquake zone Italy. We have Robert Felix. You had time. I guess you were so wiped out. You were 70 miles south of the earthquake shattered areas of Italy. And then we also have our nuclear expert, Chris Harris. Robert, tell us your travels and what happened when you're over there.
Well, mainly I went to Italy to visit my publisher in Cesena, Italy, because they have translated not by fire but by ice into Italian. So I visited there, had to go through Bologna in order to get there. And Bologna is just 20 miles south of where that the epicenter of that big earthquake. That the first one killed 7 people, and then supposedly aftershock killed another 15 people at least. But I was telling you earlier is that my wife and I were so wiped out that we slept through the earthquake. Didn't know it happened.
I got a new tagline for your next book, because I'm sure that you want to make a book 2 of this book. I would change the title slightly. I would say By Fire and By Ice.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. It is going to be. You know, that's the other thing is I mentioned too is that there's now they're using satellite measurements to measure the surface of the ocean, and they're saying that these same satellite measurements is that they can measure the ocean floor, and they expect because of this, because of the mountains, all of these mountain chains underneath the ocean change the gravity pull, and they pull more water towards them, and that makes the surface of the ocean get just slightly higher in those areas. And satellite measurements can actually measure that. Now, and I'm going to quote this. This is from the Cryosat satellite. This is a quote. "This new mapping from Cryosat will revolutionize our understanding of ocean floor tectonics and reveal perhaps 10,000 previously uncharted undersea volcanoes."
Wow.
And we wonder what is heating our oceans.
Exactly. It's like if my wife has an induction stovetop. So she takes her induction stovetop kettle and puts it on there, and the heat is always from the bottom, whether it's a regular element, the old curlicue element, a thermal, infrared element, it's from the bottom. This idea that global warming happens from the top is a secondary and a minor issue. Now, it becomes major when you have a major surge of methane hydrates, when you have an asteroid impact, or you have a major underoceanic volcanism event that releases, and believe it or not, at the bottom of the Macondo drill site, where they were told as literally as 1951 not to drill, there's 1.5 to 2 miles thick of methane hydrates. 1.5 to 2 miles thick from the ocean floor down. And each volume of cubic centimeter of methane hydrates at that seafloor level, when expanded to sea level, increases by volume 600 times. So people don't understand, yes, when you have that, then you can have a major increase in thermal warming. But they said recently that the parts per million of carbon dioxide crossed a great transition zone that puts the Earth in grave danger. I think it was 400 parts per million. They need to get a reality check. First off, there's a great deal of stretch in what's called the carbon-oxygen cycle. And again, I'm an expert on this. I did an oceanography research going back over 40 years ago. I'm an environmentalist going back one of the earliest members of Greenpeace before they went crazy over 40 years ago. So I know what I'm talking about. And the fact is that the biggest thing driving our climate is underoceanic volcanism, and of course the sun. And the sun, whether it's closer to the Earth or further away, in these cycles like the Milankovitch cycle, the precession of the equinox cycle, the cycle that's a Maunder cycle every 360 years, these are tied directly to oceanic volcanism, and they're the primary driver of increased rainfall, as well as things like cosmic rays that form micronuclei that increase rainfall by forming micronuclei for rain. We know that. We're going through a zone of the galaxy where more micronuclei are present because there's more energetic particles forming more raindrops. That's just a fact.
You mentioned earlier about the heat coming from beneath and not from above. I wonder how many of your listeners have swimming pools, and even on a hot day, do they use a fan to blow the heat across the top of the swimming pool to heat it?
It wouldn't do anything. It would create a hot layer, and it would say, it would create a hot layer. What people have to realize is, and we have even climate experts. We brought in Dr. Ward recently, a few months ago. He was on a couple of years ago. He was on just a few months ago. And even talking about low-level gases like sulfur dioxide, nitric oxide, etc., that can be released from underoceanic volcanoes. These can create layers that can help to contribute to locking in that heat, but the heat has to come from below.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not going to come from solar warming because the sun's actually less hot than it was. It's actually not increasing its solar activity. In fact, the sunspot activity and the solar amount of radiation coming to Earth is lower than normal. Even though we're in higher danger of a coronal mass ejection, we're actually getting far fewer sunspots, so there's less energy coming from the sun than, say, 2 decades ago. So this idea of global warming caused by these other factors is simply not valid. And the problem is whenever you take a model, and I've worked in Pascal, machine language, what's called multilinear programming, because I'm an expert in many different computer languages, you cannot make a simulated program when you leave out various different drivers, or we call it your simulation program. And the people we've talked about this with Dr. Tim Ball and others from East Anglia University that worked with the climate university to contribute to this, what are called science hoax in the United Nations. The big danger is not CO2. The big danger is killing the benthic layer of the oceans with toxic chemicals, depleted uranium, things like cesium-137 and strontium-90 from nuclear reactors. That's dangerous because when you kill those top, literally 30 feet, which make 80% of the world's oxygen, you kill what's called the carbon-oxygen cycle. When you knock down forests and you allow international banks and so on to say, it's okay to knock down 200,000 acres of forest or 1 million acres, that's crazy. That's like cutting out your lungs and say, well, you just have to breathe less per hour, Earth. That's the Earth's lungs. And the ability to convert carbon dioxide back into oxygen, that's the problem. Once you generate so much CO2, there is a limit of how much the Earth, the lungs of the Earth, and the cycle can actually regenerate oxygen, which we use for us breathing, for internal combustion engines, for every other industrial process requiring oxygen. The real danger comes from pollution, from real pollution, but we don't see that. We want to see them focused on carbon dioxide, which is a heinous crime against logic, science, and anything that's decent about it. And at the same time, they want to dissuade us to think that it's not a galactic and solar cycle, and that volcanoes, especially under the oceans, aren't the driving factor when there's 23 million volcanoes the size of a skyscraper at the bottom of the oceans in the radiator that's in the transoceanic cleft that literally is heating the planet like a radiator. And everybody wants to say, that's just your conspiracy theory. It's called science. In other words, people are entitled to their opinion. They're not entitled to the facts.
Well, you say that that's the biggest danger. I still think the biggest danger is the way that our politicians right now are trying to destroy capitalism and trying to destroy energy. I mean,
but at the same time, we have stupid things going on. We have stupid things happening where I totally disagree with Mr. Obama, Mr. Maniac. On the one hand, he cuts off the XL pipeline, which I think is rational. On the other hand, he allows 700,000 acres of American land to be hydrofrac'd with toxic chemicals, and they don't even have to tell us until after it's done what chemicals they use to destroy the water table. How nuts is that? And there's plenty of safe oil areas where they can extract oil and petrochemicals. And by the way, if we simply had a source of energy, including safe nuclear, which is nuclear fusion technology, CANDU reactors, which they have in Canada, pebble bed reactors, thorium reactors that'll cool off quickly if you get a station blackout. None of these things are being done, not any. We're not converting San Onofre. They want to restart the damn reactor 12 miles from where I live. They got Diablo Canyon sitting on 3 fault lines on a native burial ground. 75% of the reactors in America are sitting waiting to be a Fukushima reactor disaster. And yet, we could simply convert to better technology. We could use solar. We could use all kinds of technologies. And we do have a limit of how much CO2 we can generate. But what we need to do is get back on track. The world is crazy. It's crazy. And you're right. They want to destroy science and energy, so they want us to live. They want to not live. They want us to die. That's why the Bilderbergers are talking about Agenda 21. They want to get rid of economy, so we have to use elephant dung and die of ammonia poisoning.
Is it possible to reverse
And we're back again. Wow, a lot of sponsorship today. All right, then. Let's move on. Here we go. Record-setting New Mexico fire expected to burn for weeks. And this is SOT.net. figured I'd add that in. Now, let's go back to, let's see here. Japan. No, where are we? U.S. Okay. Okay, here we go. U.S. government memo. Let's go back to that. Nuclear fallout in ocean does not gradually spread out. Streams of higher radioactive materials. And then yesterday, Forbes. Radiation in California bluefin tuna may be a blessing. Lead scientists. My first thought was this will do more for conservation of this animal than nearly anything else could. Now, I said that yesterday. If it's in, it's going to change their DNA. It's going to destroy that species. I never, you know. It's just terrible. Well, that is really my review. Oh, Alex Jones is in Virginia, and they're over there, out there with the megaphones, and screaming at all the elite over there, going to the meetings that were always denied by the mainstream media. But no more, because now they're going to start reporting on it, and they have proved it's no longer it is no longer a conspiracy theory, but conspiracy fact. There you go. So, waiting for the commercial to come back. That's all the news I have. I can search around a little more and see if I can grab some news from another source when he comes back. Nope, he's not back yet. Let's start searching around. Let's see what else is going on in the world. Alrighty then. Almost. Let's go look at the 2012 countdown clock. How's that? The official one. Nope, still commercial. Alrighty, December 21st, 2012, official countdown clock. Let's go into that, and what do we have left? 202 days, 7 hours, and 56 minutes till December 21st, 2012. Oh, okay. Let's see. Also, that was good. The third hour that he was talking, the other names for the second dwarf, our second son, the dwarf, red dwarf, brown dwarf, is Nibiru. So he's telling you guys about Nibiru. So, alrighty then. Quick.
The GCM
Here we go.
Network.
Coming back. And he's back.
Robert and joining us for a quick summation, he was on yesterday, Chris Harris, on our third hour yesterday. If you want to listen to that program, it was awesome. Chris Harris, a nuclear expert. What's happening in Fukushima and what are they doing here in America? Now that we've got rid of JASCO, we have McFarland. What's happening in Fukushima with the Daiichi plant cooling pool 4? What's happening at cooling pool number 2 reactor, where they now say there's new problems there? Number 3, which is a MOX reactor. What's going on, Chris?
Well, we discussed already our summation of the Achilles tendon, or the Achilles heel, of Daiichi Unit 4. And I know that John Morse discussed a little bit about that. And a lot of people are beginning, including Paul Gunter, and we're getting Arnie Gunderson actually on board. Also, he said, yeah, you know what, that's actually true, that that seal is vulnerable. So,
yeah, you're talking about the seal. Now, explain the seal. This is important. You mentioned this yesterday. The seal is basically starting to deteriorate, where the water will completely drain out of that pool and it will be completely unstable, and the heat inside each fuel rod assembly will literally pop the cork on these assemblies, and then the corium will melt into it would call a lava lamp of nuclear material. Is that right?
It just dawned on some of us that with the slide gates pulled for the fuel, between the fuel transfer tube actually a fuel slot that goes between the refueling pool, or the refueling cavity, in this case is right above the reactor, and the spent fuel pool, there is a seal holding all that water up, right? So the next thing is this, and what it is a large ring-like device that goes from the reactor vessel flange to the drywall, the interior of the drywall, and that forms the bottom of a pool. And you fill up this whole cavity, and then you can pull the slide gate out for refueling, so you can transfer fuel back and forth. When we think that that's vulnerable, and if it starts getting shaken up too much in order to pull off, it can pull apart, or it can just deteriorate, because at this point it's been sitting there, it's been doing its job for far longer than it was intended to do. Yeah. And now that we're seeing new photos, you check E&E News on the bowed out wall on Unit 4. If that goes, then a lot of us feel that that seal doesn't have a chance in heck of maintaining its integrity. So,
yeah, there's three consequences I want to get your opinion on. The first consequence that we've been looking at over the number of months we've been dealing with this, Chris, is the first one is when there's a massive release of radiation, no one is going to get near any of these reactors or cooling pools in the entire Daiichi area. Number two, the coriums go to the groundwater table. If you don't have a zirconite fire, we're going to have hydrogen and nuclear explosions injecting this radioisotopes into giant plumes into the local atmosphere, into the oceans, and heading toward us. And the third consequence is there'll be a mass evacuation of Tokyo and a disaster where it'll finally strike the Japanese and the world financial markets, so we'll have a collapse of their economy, circulating the planet, and people in America will finally, Sanjay Gupta and other people in the lame brain media will finally pick up the fact that we are being irradiated daily with a giant plume of radiation that's going to cause not only preterm deaths, but cause Granny to die a lot quicker and to give us Alzheimer's disease, a heart attack, a stroke, or God knows what else. And when that finally hits the psyche, the sensor band of the population, they're going to freak out.
Well, yeah, and it's worth freaking out over, because we're not supposed to, like you said about popping the cork on those tubes. All it would take is an overheating event. You don't have to actually have a fire. So,
exactly. All you need to have overheating, and it pops the cork, and we have a massive burp of radiation just from that alone.
And that's going to be plenty.
Yeah.
And then
that'll be, in other words, if the assembly stays even intact and melts down, that'll call a pop, 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 pop. It'll be like 1,545 giant radiation tubes popping their cork in sequence over a period of probably days or hours or weeks. That'll be so dangerous that
if the seal is gone, I'm sorry, if the seal is gone, the scary part is I don't see a remedy for it, because you can't maintain water level in the spent fuel pool at that point. And that's really what the big concern is.
Yeah, and it's important, by the way, if there's anything breaking, email me. I check it 7 days a week, and we'll do an emergency report on our live stream channel and post it up on NutriMedical. But it's going to be on our live stream channel, so if you don't have a live stream membership, get one, because we do these emergency reports all the time. Same with you, Ann or Robert, because each of you are experts in your own area, and we need to put these reports up because the lame brain media isn't going to. That's why I don't see people getting ready with even civil defense. They don't understand. If this happens, just this radiation cloud, it's going to cause civil chaos, and people aren't ready for it. In fact, Consolo, she's actually wrote an article about this. I want to get your comment on this, Ann and Robert. Consolo, who's at what's called Nuke Radio, has come up with an article saying that she thinks that maybe the logic behind we talked about this yesterday, Chris, the logic behind the idea of the National Defense Authorization Act and National Resources Appropriations Acts done in January and March by the Abominator were specifically because he expects a disaster in Japan to strike America and cause civil disruption. What do you think?
If they want to go ahead and use an emergency for that purpose, I don't support it. But
well, you don't support it, neither do I. There's no need for that. But the thing is, it's like who said? I think it was Chertoff. He said, "Don't let any disaster." I think Kissinger said the same thing. Never let a good disaster go to waste.
And it was Rahm Emanuel, but that's.
He repeated it for many other of his co-minions of Satan himself. You know, Rahm Emanuel, Kissinger, Chertoff, they're all, of course, Chertoff's name in Russian means son of the devil, by the way.
Well, Robert, you were talking about Agenda 21. You didn't know how pervasive it was. We're fighting that in our county here, and there are groups already being set up like tendrils of like a octopus.
Yeah,
So,
Robert, your comments on this Agenda 21, because I'd like you to comment on what you see, because Agenda 21 is tied to this scamtastic issue, and people don't understand we're really not stopping pollution. We're really not demanding that Chinese stop pumping out millions of tons of heavy metals every day from their smokestacks, and we were allowing the Japanese to reburn the trash. It's bad enough to have the disaster, but literally all over Japan, they're reburning the damn trash, hundreds of millions of tons, that's re-injecting it into the atmosphere, so they're remobilizing what was already partially sequestered.
You know, on Agenda 21, I have been hearing about that for years. People drop me emails, and I've just been kind of ignoring it, thinking it was just one of those conspiracy theories. And now I'm reading a book by Brian Sussman. I'm not an expert whatsoever, but I'm reading this book by Brian Sussman talking about it, and oh my word, I am just shocked at how bad that really is about essentially it's meant to destroy the United States. It's just incredible how bad it really is, and I hope that I'm going to keep on reading about it. I'll be willing to talk about it more, but I hope everybody takes Agenda 21 very, very.
What's the name of the book that you're reading now by Brian Sussman?
I think it's Echo Terror.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I'll look it up and come back and tell you.
That's right. A good term. I put it in. Actually, was in the Small Scroll Prophecy 13 years ago, called "I Shall Send You Eco-Communism and Islamic Terror." That's one of the chapters, one of the verses of that first chapter. That's what we have. It's a form of eco-communism, is what it is. Eco-communism.
Absolutely. Eco-communism, eco-Marxism, but it's sure doing everything in its power to destroy our freedom. It's doing everything in its power to destroy what the United States is all about.
I call it environmental communitarianism, which is basically handing over control of every resource, including even collecting water off your roof. You know, you can be prosecuted in Colorado if you collect roof water. We're setting up a roof water collection system here in California because by state law, California, Washington, and other states have the right, but in Colorado you don't. So if you collect water off your roof, the state can actually hit you with a massive fine, even if you're up in the mountains and say Monarch or someplace collecting your roof water, because it's a good place to store water off your roof or even run your garden or have emergency water.
It gives the government the right to control, quote, ecosystems, but it doesn't define what an ecosystem is, so it could be just your swimming pool in your own backyard. It could be just the water off your roof. That is what Agenda 21 wants to do, is just remove vestige of freedom.
That's why when I went to the Strawberry Festival here in Vista, California last weekend, they had the damn San Diego Gas and Electric people talking about this issue. And the lady, I said, have you tested these out, or do you understand? Have you done research? Oh, my granddaughter, there's a smart meter for the gas right on the other side of the wall for her head. I said, are you aware of the DNA damage? She says, oh, no, I've researched. I said, tell me your research. I said, well, I'm a world-class expert on this and a teacher and an activist in environmental medicine, and I'm filing lawsuits against your company. I said, you need to know your granddaughter is getting DNA damage caused by this and scalar non-radioactive, non-ionizing radiation effects on epigenetics control of her DNA causing micronuclei. Do you know how dangerous that is? Brain cancer, deafness, autism, all kinds of problems. And she looked at me like just like a deer in the headlights. And she's standing there patting these smart meters for gas and so on. This is great. This is Agenda 21. We don't like you. We turn off your damn gas or your water. Have a nice day.
Wow. Well, it's another commercial. Why don't we see what we can see off of Yahoo News, maybe. See if there's anything interesting going on there. I don't really like them, but we can check that out. see what the headlines are over here. Also, Ancient Aliens is on tonight. Not sure if it's a new one or not, but Ancient Aliens is on tonight. Oh, he's right. It says gross hazards of public pools. TV stars drastic transformations. Bieber's annoying t-shirt. NFL has Ledger in Saint scandal. See what I mean? This is why I don't like this. Is that really the real news that's going on? What's really going on? Maybe we'll take a look at Dutch Sense. See, that's enough with that one. What kind of baloney here? Let's go back to YouTube. Yeah. What this TV actress looks like in real life. Oh. Those are important issues, I guess, according to Yahoo News. Think twice about dipping into a public pool. Oh. Alright, let's see. Let's see if we have anything new today. Let's go to Dutch Sense. I know Space Coast, Florida did have a lot of rain today. So I personally know that.
No, it's not 1.5 now. The thing is,
okay, so we don't need to go in there. Alrighty then. I guess that was the end of the show. Never heard Ann Morrison speak. I'm not sure. I didn't hear her say anything that I know of. So, go back to you guys. This is the longest show I ever did, I think. Alright. Well, it's the eve of the weekend. It's 5 days down. And that's it. We made it. You have TGIF. I hope you had a wonderful Friday. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.